Chief Sabalsi, this is Captain Dan Mullen, and our Director of Strategic Communications, Sarah Millard, is with us also this evening. I appreciate your attendance here, kind of short notice. We wanted to bring this matter to your attention as quickly as we could in an effort to inform you before actual decisions are made by persons outside of our control, which is kind of a different approach. Often when we have meetings about sexual offenders coming into our community, the decision's already been made, and we're notifying you, hey, this person's coming, and there's not much we can do. So we're in a slightly different position this evening. We still have some statutory loopholes, I guess, that at the moment work against us in terms of protecting our kids from some of these serious child sex offenders. But we're hoping that your assistance this evening and your being better informed about these particular issues will help propel some pending legislation to help us fix this issue so we don't have to continue to address it, place our community in jeopardy, and certainly Beloit should really not be the receptacle for child sex offenders for the state of Wisconsin. So in essence, what we have this evening, an individual by the name of Kenneth Cairns. Now, if you remember a few months ago, the address at 2219 Euclid, we had a similar meeting. It was after the decision had already been made by a La Crosse County judge to place Stephen Schulke, also a sexual offender who, by nature of his acts, would be a serious child sex offender, but for the technicality of some of the statutory language in his plea bargaining down to some of the charges that would have precluded him from living there because the house is next to a residence where there's some children. Because of the technicalities in the existing statutory law, he was able to be placed there against all of our objections. When we received the information on him, we also received the information on Mr. Cairns, and we informed the State Department of Health Services of the same information, that there was in fact children living next door. We would be opposed to this individual living there because he has a very similar long history of being a predator, groomer, against young children. In Mr. Cairns' case, he had several instances with boys as young as 9 years old, going back to the 70s. So over a period of several decades, he's been involved in abusing and assaulting children. So after Schulke was placed at the residence, we didn't hear anything more about Mr. Cairns until maybe the last week. We got a phone call from Health Services. They're informing us that, hey, now that we're going to move ahead and place Mr. Cairns in that same residence. In the interim, we had also informed the Department of Health Services that our Beloit zoning ordinance would prohibit non-family members from living together in that residence. They've apparently decided to ignore that and informed us that they are going to be recommending to the Douglas County Judge Kelly Tyne that they recommend placement of Mr. Cairns here in Beloit. Now, a hearing date for that decision has not been set, so there's some opportunities for you to walk away with some information tonight to, I would say, professionally, prudently, properly, maybe send some information and our concerns to the judge in Douglas County, because the judge is acting on the information that the Department of Health Services provides him. So I think hearing from us before that decision may be helpful. There's also the pending legislation. It's Assembly Bill 539 and its companion bill, Senate Bill 446, which is now before the Senate and has been moving along pretty well. That statute, or that pending legislation, would prohibit another county from placing a sexual offender in another county. Right now, Mr. Cairns or Mr. Schulke have no connection to Beloit. Their crimes were committed here. They have no family connections here. We just ended up being the recipient of them. The proposed bill would require the county of jurisdiction, a venue where the crimes occurred, where the person lives, to house them in that county. So that would at least close one of the loopholes that we find ourselves being victimized by the current. So as I said, that's moving along. All of our state legislators locally, Senator Ringhand, Senator Nass, Representative Spreitzer, and Representative Lautenbach are all in support of this legislation. I've spoken with all of them. They've been very helpful on this issue, and it is an issue that we need their assistance because it requires changes to the law. In terms of the other loophole, allowing some of these individuals to plea bargain crimes, sexual assaults against young children to other crimes that otherwise put them outside of the label of a serious child sex offender, That has to be dealt with on the legislative side as well. And I'm sure the legislative intent was to not allow people of this ilk to be living next to our kids. However, because of the stringent manner in which the statute was written, it only has 4 specific crimes. It leaves out crimes that happened in Mr. Cairns' case in the 70s and 80s that would fit the elements of the crime by what the crime is and the age of the youths, but those statutes don't exist anymore. In Mr. Schulke's case and in Mr. Cairns' case, they pled to other charges. So what I'm saying is they technically sexually assaulted kids as young as 9, but they were allowed to plead to other charges that weren't the specific ones that make them, by statute anyway, a serious child sex offender. So that's a loophole that we need to work on next, and all of our legislators are aware of that, and we're in discussions on that. I believe they're all supportive of that as well. So I think the purpose of tonight's meeting is to kind of inform you of all of these things, let you know what's happening. Here in Beloit, we're trying to inform you better and hope that you will help us support the changes to the legislation, reaching out to your legislators and letting them know about this information. Maybe reaching out to the Douglas County Judge Time and letting him know that you, as a resident here, are opposed to this placement. And all of that could have some bearing, as well as the proposed bill moving through the legislature, rather. Right now, we don't have a specific hearing date up in Douglas County. We're told it could be early March or early April, which is probably in our benefit and will allow time for this proposed bill to maybe make its way through and become law, at which point maybe that changes this dynamic in this particular instance. So I think that's the basics of the situation. I'm happy to take any questions or concerns that any of you may have.
So they're not going to respect the city of Beloit's law at all?
In terms of the zoning, the exact quote we got from the Department of Health Services was that's between our attorneys and your attorney. So it doesn't appear to me that, and I don't want to try and necessarily denigrate the Department of Health Services. However, frankly, they have been less than forthcoming. They have not been cooperative. They seem a little even concerned about the adverse effects this has on our community. They seem really to be just trying to get these individuals out and place them wherever they have arrangements to place them and go from there. Now, in terms of the placement, I think another interesting thing for all of you to be aware of is that there is a holding company, Ladoga LLC, that's in Fond du Lac. And doing some other research, we've seen that in Kenosha and some other places in Wisconsin, the same holding company owns residences, and they're also the owners of the house at 2219 Euclid. So apparently they have some kind of contract, agreement, what have you, with the Department of Health Services to house these sexual offenders, and in many instances they are garnering significant rent from the state of Wisconsin, i.e. our tax money. Some instances up to $2,500 a month. And when you're talking about a house that's valued at about $70,000, if you're making that much in rent, you've paid off half the house in a year. So this holding company, I think, is making out quite well under this arrangement. They've been very difficult to actually contact, to actually speak to a person. You get routed from attorney to attorney. Health Services isn't helping us much with that either. So there is a underlying network to this whole process. I think it's highly unusual that two, what I would call serious child sex offenders, not from this area whatsoever, find their way here to Beloit, and now they want to put them in the same house regardless of our zoning and regardless of the issues it creates for the safety of our community and the kids. So that's a long answer to, yeah, they don't really care, right?
So the judge don't know that they share a driveway with my kids?
Well, I think this is important to inform the judge. Now, we send this information to the Department of Health Services. They prepare a report and give it to the judge. How much of the details go into their report from our report, I can't say for sure, which is why I think it's important that we are, in our responses and follow-up, respectful to the judge in terms of our concerns, but we need, it'd be a good idea for you to make them know. So it depends on the judge, how much do they dig into
that. Yeah, but at the last meeting, DHC wouldn't even let me talk. They shut me up every time I started talking.
Right.
I live right next, I'm there.
My suspicion is, you know, because we don't really see their report, we never get a copy of their report, do we? Did they get the judge?
We got a copy of the Schluke report, but they won't release the Cairns report. at
To the
this time.
judge? You guys got a copy of what they sent to the judge, or?
After the fact.
After the fact.
Right, and they won't give us what they're sending on cards right now. So, again, that's why, you know, it's hard for us to judge the judge in terms of that. They get the information they get. So this is an avenue, I think us getting in front of this decision is helpful. I think the potential looming bill that could change the whole landscape of whether or not this is even allowed is part of the thinking process as well. So, yes, sir.
Do you have like a, on that property, do you have like where there's some kind of a video surveillance that the department can do?
We cannot put video surveillance in there, but the individual is on electronic monitoring, probation parole, or?
Yes.
Okay, so,
What,
Yeah, they're on, whether Schluke or Cairns are both on lifetime GPS monitoring, which means they're monitored by their GPS. And Schluke, for, at least for the first year when they get released, they have to be with agent of DHS to go anywhere.
okay. What if the neighbor decides to buy like video equipment? Is it legal for them to point it towards the neighbor's property just to?
you could put video on your property. You can't intentionally point it into someone else's window.
Well, I
You
know
could
about
certainly
window, but
put
I
it
mean,
to protect your property. So
And
I think within a reasonable use of that is absolutely allowable.
right, okay.
With it being a shared driveway, how far onto my property can he come?
Well, it shouldn't come onto your property at all. Now, a shared driveway is a question that I guess we would have to get some kind of a legal opinion. I guess if it's a shared driveway, at least the width of the driveway, right? Before he's on your actual property. Yes, sir.
Yeah, hi, Chief.
Hi, how you doing, sir?
Do we have any standing before the court? Can we appear there and make a presentation at all?
I don't believe as a citizen you could. I've discussed with our city attorney the potential idea of sending someone to Douglas County to make a presentation on behalf of the city. At this point, she doesn't believe that that's a prudent course. There was some discussion of maybe looking to file some type of injunction in Rock County. That is still an open question at this point, and that's really up to legal review of the city attorney. But in looking at some of the other instances that have happened in other cities, no one's really been successful. I think Kenosha had an appellate decision, but I don't know that it actually prevailed. And so, but a very similar situation to what we're dealing with.
isn't that how we got Schluke, was Kenosha got it over?
I don't know if that was
We
actually,
only then made it so that Schluke couldn't come?
I don't know if it was Schluke in that case though. I don't know that for sure. I believe he came right from Sand Ridge to here.
No.
Well, he came from Sand Ridge, but I don't know
Right.
if there's any
He was
other
in Kenosha.
placements
Was
that
he?
comes from that, so.
May have been then, yeah.
Did you mention there was a ordinance with the city that says non-family?
Yeah,
Yeah, there's a
What is-
zoning ordinance.
How do we not have code enforcement simply evict these people out of this property?
Well, what will happen right now is that we will issue citations to them, in theory, every day that they're in violation. Now, who are we issuing them to? You heard me talk about how difficult it's been to actually get a person associated with this LLC. So while we will attempt to do that, it may be a rabbit hole, futile effort on our part to actually ever be able to enforce that. But we do have that option, and you know, we'll do everything we can, but probably that won't be effective.
Okay.
Yes, ma'am.
Is there a way that we can like signal, like the neighbors that this is a sex offender, like as far as maybe putting signs up or even
porch light, a different colored porch light or something.
On your house?
Maybe, no, on their houses.
No, yeah, unfortunately, no, you can't trespass on that property and do anything to that house. I guess the best thing is reaching out with your neighbors, networking with your neighbors and letting them know. You know, attendance here tonight, considering the weather, is actually pretty good, and the more people that we can network with, we will put information up on our department Facebook site as things progress and new information becomes available, and you're certainly free to share that with your neighbors. And so it's just really kind of that being aware, watching, talking to people, letting them know.
So you're gonna put on the Facebook the Senate bill and everything, so.
Yeah, actually,
we
in this
can-
presentation, we're videoing, we're gonna put this whole presentation on our website, our YouTube link from our website, so
Yeah, Facebook.
you could direct neighbors that weren't here tonight if they wanna watch the presentation, get some of this information.
Well, and also we can share it on our Facebook.
Yeah,
Like a lot of the stuff-
Absolutely, absolutely.
A lot of the stuff you have put on,
Yes,
you know.
yep, get the word out, absolutely. Yes, ma'am.
Is there a community watch in that area? I know there is supposed to be one in mine.
Yeah, I don't think so.
Is that something that would be beneficial?
Sure, I think it's always good to increase our community, our neighborhood watch programs. You know, we have, some areas have more involvement than others. And certainly if you are interested in starting neighborhood watch, we'll hook you up with someone from our department and get this going. I think that's a great idea.
To me, it's just neighbor looking out for neighbors,
Yeah,
especially
absolutely.
under these circumstances.
Yep, I would agree.
If they can violate our Beloit laws in the hope that then we have to help each other.
Well, I would agree with you. I think neighborhood watch is an excellent option.
Along with the video,
Yeah.
within certain restrictions.
Right, you know, I gotta caution everyone, right? We have to be mindful of the rights of the people living at that house. We may completely disagree with their placement, but we don't wanna get ourselves in conflict with the law either, so we gotta stay on the right side of the tracks, but there are things we can do to keep people informed and to monitor the situation.
So I can put signs in my yard?
You can put signs in your yard, sure.
Okay.
Absolutely. We have stopped in and visited Mr. Schulke. We gave him a personal invitation. You may be aware we have a parolee roll call program that we've been running for the last couple of years. And so when people get out off of parole and into the Beloit community, we have them come down to our roll call so that they can meet our officers. We get that face-to-face. It's much easier to remember someone than on a piece of paper. Have a little communication. Let them know that we're there to support their reintegration, but we also kind of, okay, we know who you are, you know who we are, kind of thing as well. So there's that additional level of accountability. Mr. Schulke opted not to appear, and we can't ourselves make him appear. So we had a couple officers appear at his house to introduce them to him. We'll continue to do that. We'll give Mr. Cairns the same offer to come down and meet our cops, and I guess if he doesn't want to, we certainly can go up there and meet him. So, you know, we can kind of play that both ways, but just in terms of what's their level of cooperation, Mr. Schulke's already decided he doesn't want to come down and meet us, so that's not making me real warm and fuzzy. Yes, sir?
How does their jurisdiction work? If they walk a quarter of a mile south, they'd be in Illinois, right?
If they want to what?
The jurisdiction?
Well, they can't, technically, they cannot leave their residence unless they're in the accompaniment of a probation and parole agent. So which is kind of the whole oddball thing to this whole theory. In Sand Ridge, they're in a confinement type of environment. They have assessed at some point that they believe they have evolved enough in their rehabilitation that they can now, they would call it reintegration with the community, but in essence, they're stuck in that house without the ability to go anywhere unless they are accompanied by a probation or parole agent. And I think if you think about the cost to all of us to do that as opposed to keeping them at Sandridge, where they have the professionals and no one has to really watch what they're doing because they can't hurt anyone but themselves, you have to wonder what's the viability of that whole thought process. But it is, I think, part and parcel of, similar to what we deal with in terms of mental health, is there's too many people that are being pushed out of facilities where they may be better off in terms of the safety to everyone. Now they're put here and they can't go anywhere without that person. Now they could violate their monitoring device and run off, and then yes, we really don't know. It could take some time to catch them. There's a risk there. When dealing with people with a history like that, the likelihood of reoffending is extremely high. The likelihood of rehabilitation is extremely low. This is just the science on child predators. But we are stuck with the laws that we have in terms of that.
So who actually monitors this
My question.
group of
Right.
people that are there?
Probation and parole has the responsibility to monitor. We also, in terms of monitoring the house and making contact, we have complete ability to do that. How often can we physically be by their house every second? That's not much of a reality. But the monitoring of the bracelet is done by probation and parole 24/7.
Here in Rock County?
I believe the monitoring center is located somewhere central Wisconsin. But they have active, if he leaves his house, if he steps out of his door, the alarm goes off and then we actually get a call. And we have had in the past where we got a call from the monitoring center saying that someone has either cut off their bracelet or have went out past their zone. And we get a call right away to go make contact. And in this case, anyone that's on a 980, if they violate the GPS, they go directly to jail, no questions asked.
And that'll be the same as far as the gentleman that's coming from 400 miles away, you guys will monitor his ability.
Yeah, DOC monitors, and if there's any violations, they contact us, or are supposed to contact us immediately, and then he goes to jail
Okay.
until they investigate to see what the violation actually was.
Okay.
The only issue, of course, is if they cut it off and they run. And then we're on a tracking mission.
So what can we actually do to stop this?
Well, I think in terms of stopping it, your support through our legislators for this pending legislation, you're addressing your concerns, I think, with the judge in Douglas County prior to the hearing and hearing, just the Department of Health Services report. I think it would be informative to hear from our public and how you think it affects your living and your safety. Those are the two big things that we have in our favor right now because the decision hasn't been finalized. The groundwork's laid, and Health Services is certainly in a mind to do just that, but the judge still has to ultimately say, yes, I agree.
Is there any way I can get the judge's name?
It's Judge Kelly Time, T-H-I-M-M, and it's on the information sheet. And again, I would just remind everyone that the judge is, the middle person in terms of this, and they only know what they receive. So I think if we send them thoughtful, respectful correspondence about our concerns, that will help,
Just
get that
tell
out.
the truth that my
Right.
kids' friends can't come over anymore because they're living next door to me.
Right. No, those are legitimate concerns. I just want to steer clear of an attack on the judge because that's
No,
not the
I
person.
won't do that.
Okay. Any other questions? All right. Well, I appreciate your attendance. We'll be around here for a few minutes. As we said, the presentation will be on our website by tomorrow. And we will keep you informed as we go forward. Thank you very much.
That's fine.